For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dhlamini. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss the implications of ANC electoral losses. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
You suggest that the ANC is in danger of losing the next national elections in 2019, amen not even concede power. Is that not far-fetched?
Yeah, to suggest that a party that loses elections will not concede power is a very drastic suggestion. And it suggests a sort of seizure of power, overthrow of constitutionalism. And I was not saying this will happen. However, there were signs that were rather troubling in the ANC's reaction to its electoral defeat. On the one hand, they don't seem to recognize that they've been defeated. Somehow or other they say they've won the elections, even though they've lost 3 metros. I mean, the budget for Johannesburg alone is about 55 billion, I think, or million maybe. It's a huge amount, whichever it is. And the 3 together brings it to like 160 or 150. And that's out of 5 big metros that there are in the country. So it was a huge loss. And what happened in Tshwane is that they actually disrupted proceedings and gave an indication of not being exactly gracious losers. If you look at most elections, at a certain point the person who's lost the elections concedes defeat and congratulates the other party. There was nothing of that. It was just very crude. And one has the impression that the ANC has got the sense, national liberation movements at a certain point of their existence are declared the sole and authentic representatives of the people. So the ANC, like ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe, believe they have a right to rule. And you get the impression that elections may merely confirm that right that they already have. And I felt this with Zimbabwe, and I wouldn't like to compare South Africa with Zimbabwe, but you get the impression that they regard the DA coming into control as a sort of recolonization, usurping of a right that belongs to them alone. Someone phoned me who is overseas as an ambassador, and when she tried to get me again, she left a message to the effect about, are you also in mourning that you're now in DA land? And I use the joke of Cape Town being under, Western Cape being under colonial rule, but I think there is a sense that the ANC and only the ANC has the right to rule. What that will lead to in the event of them losing nationally, which now is a possibility, we need to factor in the possibility that they will not hand over power.
Why are you so dismissive of the idea of the ANC self-correcting?
Even some of the most aggressive criticisms of what is happening now are all made on the premise that the ANC has an essence. There is some quality that represents the real ANC. And what we are living through now is not really the ANC. We must go back to the real ANC and the real ANC's values. Sometimes they say the ANC of Oliver Tambo. For some reason, some of them don't mention Nelson Mandela. Don't know if he was also not in the real ANC. So that there are supposed to be qualities that are essential. Like some people say, to behave this way is un-ANC. Now, the way I understand the ANC, with or without Zuma, is a contested organization. The meaning of the ANC is something contested, and it changes from decade to decade, from time to time. And I am not confident of the capacity of the ANC to correct itself. Now, one of the reasons I'm not confident about it is that what these people are suggesting is that everything before Zuma was fine. We must then ask, why were people so unhappy with what was happening before that they voted in Zuma? What were the reasons? Were there not factors in the ANC of the time that were problematic, which led people to vote in someone like Zuma, however disastrous this has been? And all people, including someone like myself, who was involved in the ANC leadership, we have to ask ourselves, what did we do that made it possible for someone like this to lead the ANC and to lead it in a direction like this? Was there insufficient organizational coherence? Was there insufficient embracing of values which were antagonistic to the patronage-based politics that we get today? Now, patronage is not new. Patronage was present during the Thabo Mbeki era, not related to the Guptas and things like that, but he had around him people who were close to him. And one of the complaints about Thabo Mbeki was that he worked with a close group of people, and not all of them served the country or the ANC well. Now, these are allegations, and I did myself have some sense of a centralization in Mbeki, nothing like what is happening now, but we need to ask ourselves whether the existence of patronage then, even under Mandela, I would say we would find elements of patronage. We can find it throughout the history of the ANC, in exile, who got scholarships to where, who got particular types of training. In the 1950s, when Chief Luthuli was a chief, an elected chief, he was given a criminal jurisdiction. He could have used imposition of fines to augment his income, which he was allowed to do. He refused to do it. He could have moved boundaries in exchange for bribes. He didn't do it. Now, some people did. Some people enriched themselves with, obviously the scale is much larger now than it was then. So my criticism of the call for self-correction is that it assumes that there is an ANC with essential qualities. We just need to rediscover those qualities, go back there, turn the clock back, and then start again on the correct highway, and then we will just go forward. Now, it doesn't work like that. What we need to do is look critically at ourselves, if we were in the ANC, look at the way it operated, and correct not just the present, but also what went before, and rebuild an organization. But I'm not sure the ANC has the capacity to do that. It may well be, it sounds dramatic, but may well be that the ANC can collapse. The Soviet Union existed from 1917 until 1985, I think. Suddenly it just collapsed. And very few people would have expected that. The Indian Congress led the Indian people to independence. By the 1970s, it was corrupt, it was authoritarian, it was voted out, and it came in again, but as I said in my article, it was a shadow of itself. It was very corrupt. It was really also dynastic, with the Nehru family continuing to be in the leadership. And in some ways, we see signs of this with the talk of trying to bring Nkosazana Dhlamini Zuma in as Zuma's successor. So, personally, I don't think that that's the way one must start. We really need to rebuild our democracy, rebuild our country. And what happens to the ANC is a subsidiary question which the ANC must address, and to just talk about going back, to me, is not recognizing that it's not just Zuma. There are problems that pre-existed Zuma, and these things need to be addressed.
Thank you, Raymond. That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Crema Media's Polity about the implications of ANC electoral losses.